Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be looking over BT-05, and BT-05 adds a lot of new and powerful tools to make some new and exciting decks with, or update some old and existing decks. And one of those decks is going to be the Yellow-Green Rookie Rush, and Yellow-Green Rookie Rush is looking to be a very powerful deck despite what others might think in the BT-05 meta because of all of the new tech that they got to help propel the strategy forward. So going over the deck, starting with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Upamon. So Upamon is still the best Digitama that we have because it's acting as the primary draw engine of the deck because of his inheritable ability of when attacking once per turn. If you have 3 or fewer cards in your security, then you get to draw 1 card. So because we're going to be hard playing rookies more often than we're going to be evoing, we're going to be running rather low on cards quite quickly. So Upamon trying to help us draw cards to keep us in the game is really good and really important. And then as far as the 5th Digitama, it could really be anything you want it to be. I'm just choosing to use Pickmon just because Pickmon is looking to be very powerful because he has this nice inheritable ability of when attacking, if we have 3 or more Digimon in play, then one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP for the turn. So this is just a really good way at just reducing the opponent's DP, and this is really important because they're going to try to walling us out with blockers more often than not, so reducing the DP of those blockers makes those blockers even weaker and more susceptible to being deleted by our rookies because our rookies are going to have some very high power. But this is the 5th Digitama of the deck, and it could really be anything you want it to be. So if you want to use a Cupimon to try to help you draw cards in a slightly different manner, then that's totally fine as well. Or if you want, you could even use Kimeramon for basically a very similar style of effect. It's just the condition is similar to Upamon's, and I think I prefer Pickmon's type of condition on getting the minus DP boost, making Pickmon just a better choice to pick, but again, it's all just the 5th Digitama slot anyway. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Auroramon. So Auroramon is a pretty good Digimon to be running just because we're not looking to evo the card because we're not playing any green eggs, so we're looking to hard play the card, and for a low play cost of 2, having a 5000 DP body is just very powerful and very efficient. And then on top of that, I'm also going to be playing 3 copies of Leomon because it's sharing the exact same stats as Auroramon, so this is just extra copies of that stat line, making it a very aggressive card to be playing around with. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Tsukaimon. So Tsukaimon is just another very efficient rookie for us to be playing because it has a low play cost, low evo cost, and decent DP compared to a lot of other generic rookies. So this is just a really efficient card to be running as a whole. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Salamon. So this is the BT-02 version of Salamon, and this Salamon is really good because it has a nice on-delete ability, where if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to recover 1. So recovery is a really powerful mechanic to be playing around with, especially in this style of deck because we are trying to damage race the opponent, and being able to heal just puts the opponent off of that damage race, making it even easier for us to try to close out the game because this effect not only is taking away the opponent's security ideally because of Salamon just wanting to attack, but on top of which it's also healing us, putting them even further off from winning than we are. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Lopmon. So Lopmon is a very fantastic Digimon for this deck to be running just because she has the nice powerful on-play ability of being able to look at the top card of our security stack. Then we get to add that card into our hand, and if we do, we get to draw 1 card. So as I previously stated, Rookie Rush isn't necessarily known for drawing a whole bunch of cards, so being able to have Lopmon to potentially draw us 2 cards is very good, but we don't even have to use that effect if we don't want to, so that just makes Lopmon really powerful because it's giving us a lot of extra information and potential card draw. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Falcomon. So Falcomon is just another rookie that's following in the same stat line as Auroramon and Leomon, so it just is another very powerful rookie to consider hard playing because of its very low play cost and the fact that it has 5000 DP. Next, I'm running 2 copies of Cutemon. So Cutemon is a very powerful card for this deck to be running just because she has a very nice ability where during the opponent's turn, the opponent can't reduce their Digivolution costs. So this is really important for a couple of different decks to be playing against. So it's really good against most green decks because green as a whole just tends to like to reduce its Digivolution costs because of Digisorption, because of Hidden Potential Discovered, and because of certain other cards that just want to naturally reduce their evolutions. So Cutemon is really good for that, but Cutemon is also really good for decks like Imperial Dramon, Diaboromon, and any of the ancient decks because they also play around with reducing their own Digivolution cost. So Cutemon is a really good tech card to be playing with against those decks and helps your overall win rate against those decks, slowing them down significantly. Next, I'm going to be playing 4 copies of Starmons. So Starmons is a very powerful card for this deck to be playing because he has a very nice on-play ability where for each Digimon you have in play, one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP. So the more Digimon you have in play, the stronger his removal ability becomes, and that's really, really powerful because if you're just being walled out and you're building a very wide board, then you have cards to meaningfully use that wide board to just help your overall game plan. So if you just hard play a Starsmon after being walled out with, let's just say, 5 Digimon out, he'll just minus the opponent's DP by 6,000. So it could potentially kill off a blocker, and that's just really, really powerful. So he's just another really powerful card for this deck to be utilizing as a really solid and really efficient removal type of card. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Pulsemon. So Pulsemon is still just an absolutely insane card to be running for yellow as a whole, just because, again, it has another really powerful on-play ability, where if you have 3 or more cards in your security, then we get to draw 1 card. So it's helping us draw cards, which, again, Rookie Rush isn't really known for evoing, so we need to draw cards in any way that we can. And on top of which, if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to gain 1 memory, which is basically making him cost 2 instead of 3, which is, again, making him just a very efficient rookie to be playing. But the crazy thing is, if you're at exactly 3, then you get both of those abilities off, and both of those abilities combined just make Pulsemon a very powerful card to be running. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Tsukaimon. So Tsukaimon is still just a very powerful card for the deck to be running just because it has a very low evo cost of 1, and it has 6,000 DP, just making it a very powerful card to just Digivolve your weaker Digimon into to try to aggress it onto the opponent with. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Digitama. So Digitama is basically just doing almost the exact same thing as Tsukaimon. It just has 1 more evo cost, but it does have 1 less hard play cost, so if we do need to hard play it for some reason, it's a little bit more efficient than Tsukaimon, but the main reason why we're playing this card is the fact that it is another champion with 6,000 DP, making it just, again, another very aggressive card to be playing with. Next, onto the options, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Needle Spray. So Needle Spray is just a really good card because it's very efficient at having a low play cost of 2, and then it has the nice main ability of suspending one of the opponent's Digimon down. So this is mostly going to be used to suspend blockers down, so that way you could swing into their security without having to worry about them stopping you. And then on top of that, it also has the nice security ability where you get to activate the main effect, and then this card gets added to your hand. So that's the big reason why I choose to prefer playing Needle Spray over Flower Cannon, is because this card actually gets to use its main ability to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon down, and then we get to add it to our hand to then reuse the card again. So it's just looking to be a very powerful and very efficient card for this deck to be running. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Blinding Ray. So Blinding Ray is going to be, for all intents and purposes, the Hammer Spark of the deck, where we're just utilizing it because it's a free card to use, and it has the main ability where we have to trash the top card of our security stack, then we get to gain 2 memory. The crazy thing is, if we don't have any security in our security stack, then we still can use this card to gain the 2 memory to make some very powerful plays happen in a pinch to try to help close out the game with. But even just reducing our own security to just put us in certain thresholds is very, very nice, and gaining the 2 memory is a lot more than gaining the 1 memory, so it's still just a very good card to be running for the overall tempo of the deck. And then the last option of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Spiral Masquerade. So Spiral Masquerade is a really powerful removal option for the deck to be playing with, and this is the primary reason why a lot of people are going to be sleeping on the deck, is because they might not be expecting or anticipating Spiral Masquerade to just be able to delete a wide variety of targets for such a low play cost. So what the card is doing is it has a play cost of 4, and then its main ability is for each Digimon you have in play, we get to activate the following effect, which is one of your opponent's Digimon gets a minus 3000 DP until the end of the turn. So if they're just sitting on a Mega level Digimon and we have 4 bodies in play, then we could use Spiral Masquerade to minus 12,000 DP to that target and delete it. Or we could even utilize this card with 4 Digimon to potentially delete 2 of the opponent's blockers to allow us to aggress it even easier. This card is just so powerful because it just has a whole bunch of flexibility on how you could utilize it, making it just a very powerful card for the deck to be running, especially since because we're just going to be hard playing lots of cards anyway, we're going to try to flood the field as best as we possibly can to aggress onto the opponent, and when we can't, then it just becomes fodder for Spiral Masquerade, similar to how it just becomes fodder for Starmons. So it's just another card that's playing into what the deck wants to be doing, thus making it a very strong card to be running. And then it also has the nice security ability of activating its main effect, so if we have a full board on our fields, the opponent attacks into our security, flips over a Spiral Masquerade, that could be really brutal and devastating on the opponent, them losing their board off of attacking into our security. And then the last card of the deck, which is going to be the only Tamer of the deck, is going to be 2 copies of TK. So this version of TK is still really good just because he's going to be acting as the memory fixing Tamer of the deck. So if our memory is ever less than 3, he's just going to hard set it to 3, and that's really good to allow us to make our plays as consistent and powerful as we possibly can. And on top of which, he also has a very nice on play ability where we get to look at our security stack and then reveal 1 card from among it, add it to our hand. Then if that card is yellow, we get to recover 1. So this is really important because, again, Rookie Rush isn't necessarily known for having super high levels of consistency, so any way we could get some extra consistency out of the deck to try to figure out what pieces we need and how to get our pieces as quickly and efficiently as we possibly can is usually really good, and that's why I still really like TK in the deck, even though a lot of people might not see it necessarily because of Blinding Ray just helping fix our memory anyway. It's just still a very solid card to be running overall. And if the blue version can hard drop Davis, then the yellow version could hard drop TK. And then Rookie Rush has a whole bunch of other tools that you could think about utilizing, all depending on what you actually want to utilize and what you want to gain out of the deck. So we could play Kimeramon as another really decent card to try to help us draw cards, just because he has a nice when attacking ability, where if we have 4 or less cards in our hand, then we get to draw 1 card, which is pretty decent considering, again, Rookie Rush isn't necessarily known for having high levels of card draw, so any way we could draw extra cards is really nice. The only unfortunate thing is it does have 1000 DP, which is rather unfortunate considering there's just a lot more removal in the game, especially for smaller bodies, so Kimeramon isn't necessarily as good, but being able to draw cards is still just really good to think about. And then we also have a BT-04 version of Kimeramon, where this version of Kimeramon has another nice on-play ability where we get to trash the top card of our security stack to have one of the opponent's Digimon's DP gets reduced by 2000. So if we do just want to try to reduce the opponent's Digimon's DP to either delete them or de-incentivize them from blocking, then this Kimeramon is just another really good card at doing so, on top of which it's also reducing cards from our security stack if we're playing into certain security thresholds. Then you could consider running Bushi Agumon, because Bushi Agumon is still just an absolute insane card just because he has the rush ability. The only downside to the card is he has a very high play cost normally, so it's a little bit harder to utilize the card, but if we have TK and Blinding Ray, then we could easily play Bushi. Or if the opponent just hard drops something big, then we could utilize that memory to just utilize Bushi Agumon. So it's not like it's impossible to utilize the card, it's just a little bit harder than your average yellow deck. And then under that same type of philosophy, you could also consider running Lucemon, where Lucemon could cost 5 because it reduces its hard play cost by 8 if we have 10 or more cards in our trash, which we could get there very easily. So it's not like it's super hard to get 10 cards in our trash to make them cost 5. But he also has another really nice on-play ability where we get to recover 1, thus making the damage race a little bit more awkward, and he even has 10,000 DP, making him just a very hard card to deal with sometimes. Then you could also consider playing Renamon, just because Renamon is, yet again, another level 3 with a really good on-play ability, where this time one of the opponent's Digimon gains security attack -1. So this is just really good because it helps put, again, the opponent off the damage race, and this could even buy you some time depending on the deck if the opponent's deck isn't utilizing a whole bunch of security tech pluses. So Renamon could act as just another really good defensive tool to try to help keep you in the game even longer. Then you could also think about running Vegiemon, so if you are concerned with cards like Shakamon and Hexablaumon, then running a little bit more evolutions might be what you're looking to gain out of the deck. So Vegiemon being able to utilize your green rookies is very, very nice, just because he has a low evo cost of 1 and has 6000 DP, which is comparable to Teruimon, but the big difference between Vegiemon and Teruimon is, well, 1, the color, and 2, the fact that Vegiemon only costs 4 to hard play, so if we need to just hard play him, we don't feel super bad, just because he has a lower play cost than a lot of the other champions we could be running. And then we also have Inkilomon. So Inkilomon is a security Digimon, and that's really what we're looking to gain out of the card, is the fact that if we're trying to aggress onto the opponent, it's safe to say that the opponent is also going to eventually try to aggress onto us. So having a security Digimon just come out of nowhere and act as another Digimon to try to aggress with is just a really powerful thing to be thinking about playing around with. Plus, if we also need to, we could evo off of our weaker rookies into something a little bit stronger if we do just end up drawing him from our deck. So he's still just a pretty decent card to be running overall. And then if you really feel inclined to run some on-play Megas, which I'm not necessarily super thrilled with it, given how the current state of the game is, it just feels worse and worse, giving the opponent more and more memory. But Puppetmon is still a very decent card to consider playing nonetheless, just because his on-play ability allows you to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon, then during the opponent's next unsuspend phase, none of the opponent's Digimon can unsuspend. So that's really good at basically just stun locking a whole bunch of the opponent's Digimon down. So if we do just swing in, they have a couple of blockers, we bait out the blockers into being suspended, then suspend their big Mega. That could buy us some extra time to try to figure out how to come back, or just buy us some extra time to aggress onto the security, which could be really, really good. But again, the hard play for 11 is just giving the opponent a lot of memory, and giving the opponent a lot of memory with more powerful cards for them to be playing around with could just end up backfiring. So it's just another possible option that you could be playing around with. But he also has a nice when attacking ability of gaining 1 memory, thus making your future turns, if he lives, a little bit more efficient. And then another hard play Mega that you could consider running would be Magnadramon. So Magnadramon is a card that has a whole bunch of synergy with the deck, just because it's in our colors already, and she has a nice on-play ability of allowing us to recover 2 if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security. So again, if we're taking the damage race into consideration, then she could help us come back a little bit easier just by allowing us to heal ourselves, putting us a little bit further ahead than our opponent on that damage race. But again, she does hard play for quite a lot, and the opponent could use that memory in some very powerful ways to make this card backfire. But if this card does stick and stay on the field, the on-play ability is really nice, and she even has a nice upside where she has a good when attacking ability where we get to play a yellow level 3 Digimon from our hand for free, thus being able to play almost any Digimon in our deck but our green ones. So this is just a very powerful card to consider running, but again, hard playing isn't necessarily the greatest thing just because it's giving the opponent lots of memory. And then another option card you could possibly run is going to be Tactical Retreat. So Tactical Retreat is a very interesting option card to be utilizing, just because if we are taking damage racing into consideration, Tactical Retreat is pretty unique in the fact that it costs 1, and it allows us to place a Digimon back on the top of our security stack face down. So it's almost like it's deleting one of our Digimon to heal us, except not exactly. But still, it's just a pretty interesting card to think about if we just need to add cards into our security for whatever reason. And then on top of that, it also has a nice security ability where we get to recover 1. So if the opponent's just chipping away into our security, it's making that chip style a little bit worse because this card basically just replaces itself in security. So it's just another really good card to think about if we're taking damage racing into consideration. But for the most part, this is just what the updated version of Yellow-Green Rookie Rush is doing, and there's just a couple of different ways you could build the deck. Again, all depending on what you want to utilize, and I think this is a very powerful deck just because of all of the new removal options that it got to help try to deal with the opponent's Digimon, and because we could easily build a wide board. We have healing, we have good card draw, and we have good removal. It's just looking to be a very powerful deck that really shouldn't be slept on, just because people might think that it's a little bit weaker because of Hexablaumon and Takumi, but those two cards aren't necessarily going to be doing a whole lot to stop the deck, because again, we have a way to remove Hexablaumon, and then once Hexablaumon is gone off the field, then we could safely aggress with all of the cards that weren't able to aggress with before, because, you know, we're not running any defense. And then we also have Starmons to help pick off the opponent's blockers, and then we still have just a whole bunch of other very powerful tools to be utilizing to just try to stop what the opponent is doing, or just aggress that much easier onto the opponent. So it's definitely a deck that should not be slept on, and it's looking to be a very interesting deck to be utilizing for the current BT-05 meta. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.